Hello and welcome to this DCS mission editing series. Many years ago on a different channel I created a series for mission editing in Armed Assault, and it was pretty successful. And I realised the hardest thing in mission editing, certainly for me, was the initial getting started bit. You know, you open this editor and there's a lot of things, you don't know what most of them do. A few of them are obvious, and you see all these complex tutorials and help guides everywhere on scripting techniques, this, that, and the other, and you think, what on earth is it all? And I thought the best way to learn is to, once you've got hold of the basics, you've got a full foundation across the board to build on. That's what this particular series is going to be. So before I run through a sort of 1 to 10 or whatever the number's going to be, and I'm thinking up some ideas for different episodes, I thought the best way to start would be to have a beginner tutorial that just covers the very basics, and then we'll build on from that. And that's what this episode is. And by the end of this episode, you'll have a mission that you can play with, and hopefully you'll have picked up enough little bits along the way, even just in this one episode, that you can tinker around with it and change some things by yourself. But we're going to go for it now. So I'm going to bring it in and we're going to start right from the start. So my intention here is to go as you'll go. I'm going to just use the Caucasus map because that's one that everybody has. And the first thing that's sort of the obvious here, aside from choosing the map, is the teams. Now you've got custom, which is probably going to be the modern. And this is, you've got your three sides, okay? You've got red and blue, that's obvious, and then you've got neutral. Now, oftentimes, most missions won't have a neutral, or if they do, they're just not used. You've got a red side and the blue side. Traditionally, the Russian and the American, yeah? The West versus, I guess, the East, everywhere else. So, that's the first way, and on from that, then you've got the era. You know, is it a World War II? Is it a Cold War? Is it more modern? And the way to choose that is not just by the date, although you would do that. You would then limit the aircraft. So for now, we're just going to go with modern, and that puts the Russia on one side and the Americans on the other, which is important because that's where the most aircraft are going to be in DCS. So we're going to go with that on Caucasus. When we load up here, this is the screen you're going to be introduced to, which is just the blank map. The only thing, I'm using the right mouse button here to move around. The only thing that you'll have on are these dots. These are the bra points, the reference points. So they can be anywhere, but I like to put them over something that I recognize. So for example, when, let's for instance say there's this dam here at this lake. So if I put the blue one on there, and I'm flying for the Americans, and if AWACS says something like Bulls 360 for 20, so there's Bulls. 360 is going to be north, and 20 miles is going to be there. So that's what AWACS would be referring to. If you've no idea where Bulls is, I'm aware that, you know, certain aircraft like the F-18, you can put the Bulls point in as a waypoint and then reference it off that. But it's also nice, just for a situational awareness purposes, to know where this is. Same for the, you know, red, if you're going to be flying for the red team. Obviously, if the AI is going to be on the other team, you don't need to worry about this. You just want the circle for the side that you're going to be flying for. And somewhere, I think it's up here, yeah, is the neutral one as well, which is grey. For this mission, we're just going to do single player, but we will be covering multiplayer mission editing as well further along. So for now, I'm going to leave it blue there. We're going to fly as blue. We're now going to come across here, this sort of weather icon. This here lets you set up the date. So obviously you've got the seasons. So you've got winter, spring, summer and autumn. This, as far as I'm aware, is still the only map where they change the weather for the textures for the trees and the ground and that for the seasons. I also think the World War II one, I forget now if it's the Channel or the Normandy map. It might be the Normandy does the same, but certainly it does here, and we're on the Caucasus, so let's go April and we'll get that nice spring look. The weather system, they're allegedly overhauling it, but this is still the way it is now. So you've got the old sort of style down here. Here you've got the clouds. The clouds still don't blow along with the wind, so don't be picking clouds from here and here because there's no point. Just choose it from the top. Let's say, let's just go for a simple one, broken 4. This slider here lets you choose how high up the bottom of these clouds are. So they don't move, but this just raises and lowers the whole lot. So let's put it there. Here you've got the pressure, the default 2992. Here's the winds. So like it is in aviation, the wind in this case, well, if it's blowing from north, it would actually, these numbers would be back to front. So I think this is the direction the wind is blowing in. So that's a bit back to front as far as aviation goes. You'll see if you put 2 knots down here, it generally doubles it at the next height up, which is about right. And then these are still 0. So you can't change these independently. You might be able to change it by 1 knot like that. So I've got, but if I increase it again, you see it's going to change. So that's just the way that is. So we're going to go 12, 16. I'm just going to vary these a little bit to make it a little bit like how it would be. The wind's changing as you height. Turbulence. The higher the number is, the more the turbulence, but it is dependent on the wind speed. So for example, 100 turbulence with 2 knots like that is not going to be very much. It's going to be slight little bumps and lumps, but you know, anybody who can fly in DCS is going to be able to fly with those settings as well. However, 100 times 15, this is going to be a much bigger, and you see there's a multiply. That's going to be quite a lot of turbulence. Obviously, if you go something like that, it's going to be even more. So that's the way that works. So I'm going to keep these numbers low for the purposes of this tutorial, and just add a little bit of something just so that it's not completely static. The next thing we're going to go for is, obviously we're deciding it's single player. The era, going to go from all, just keep it simple. If you did want to limit the planes, what you'd do, let's choose this one as our base. It's going to be here. So click here, we're on the blue team. That puts this entire airbase on our side. If you wanted to limit it, I don't need to put that plane down yet. Let me just delete that. 1 sec. Delete. Let's come to it. You've got here the full info. Here's everything that's kept at that base. Generally, it's unlimited, meaning as players crash, they can just respawn. If it's multiplayer, turn unlimited off. Here, you can clear them out. This is all the different aircraft. And then you might just, for example, want people to have access to, bear in mind this includes the II as well, which are aircraft you can't fly. But let's say the F-14B. You just want 4 of those, and then that's it. So whether it's one player goes through all 4, whether it's 4 different players, that's all that there is. So that would be how you set up restrictions. The same goes for the fuel. Unlimited, turn that off, set a limit on the fuel, and here the equipment, which includes all the weapons. Once again, unlimited. And to know what all of these do, you've got A, G, all the way across. So I'm just going to restore all these to unlimited for now. You can see it would take quite some time to go through this list on the different sections to limit the exact ones that you wanted. Sorry for whoever's in the motorbike out there. Next thing I want to go through quickly is... Oh, I need you here. You hear that once a week, it's always when you're trying to do something with a sound. So here we go through. It's this one here. All of these are sort of your mission options. This here is like your difficulty setting. So if you want to restrict the views, for example, on the map, that you can see everything, you can only see friendlies, you only see what your team can see, only see yourself on the map, or you just see the map with nothing on it. So if you were doing, say, World War II or Cold War style flying and you wanted it realistic, you would absolutely not want to see your map or anything else on the map. You would just look at it like this, like a blank map, and you wouldn't see any aircraft on it. That way at least you could zoom in and use it to follow a river visually, just like you would in real life. Same again with the labels. Now on the right it says no labels. That's just because that's the way I have my in-game difficulty settings set up, but somebody else might have labels. This lets them choose. To enforce it, again, you tick here, this makes this enforced, and then here you choose which one do you want. This would mean everyone would have to have full labels, for example. They couldn't disable them. So just bear that in mind. Things here that you typically see used, right, the F2, obviously unlimited fuel weapons, immortality, these things, the game modes, you would want all of these off. Easy communications, radio assist, that's a personal choice. Things like wake turbulence, G effects that you black out. Obviously, if you have this off, like this, let's say it's multiplayer, so people can choose. Somebody else could put all these easy settings on for them. You would have the difficult settings, and because they're not enforced, they could have unlimited fuel, weapons, immortality, and so on, and you wouldn't have that. So that's just a heads up there that these do matter when it comes to multiplayer. So we're going to set up a basic base now for our team, which is going to be our player. So first off, we're going to start with a plane. This icon here, you put it down vaguely somewhere on the map. The default starting point is actually in the air at 6,000 feet. You see that here? So what I'm going to do here is choose, it doesn't really matter, let's just choose the F-18. You change the skill here. All of these are AI, rookie, trained, veteran, advanced, and random. These are all AI controlled. Player is for single player. If you were doing multiplayer, you would choose client. So let's choose player for now. Here we get to give our aircraft a name. This is so it's identified in the group. You can have more than one aircraft in a group. So let's just, for example, call this Flight 1. You can call it anything. Pilot, this would be your own personal name to reference this particular aircraft. For example, if you did have two aircraft, the second guy, we're selecting the first guy there, 1-1, selecting the second guy. Call this whatever. So let's call this the second guy. And I've typed that wrong, and the first guy. So you see, the first guy is the lead, is Flight 1. The second guy is the trail, is an AI veteran, also belonging to Flight 1. You can obviously have up to 4 aircraft in a flight. For this, we're just going to have one. Again, we're in the air. We're going to move over to the ground. So let's go through the different options. Turning point basically means you spawn in the air at 6,000 feet. That speed, obviously engines, everything running. Flyover point, this is also in the air. What differs between these two? Let me just cover it briefly. I don't have to cover it again. So we've got a few waypoints like this. On turning point, if the AI was to fly this, it would try and smooth out these turns to get to there as smooth as possible. But let's say you wanted to fly right over number 2. You didn't want it to cut this corner. You would come over to waypoint 2 and you would change it from turning point to flyover point. And now it's going to fly directly over instead of smoothing that out. That's all that is. So that's that one. Then we've got takeoff from runway. So that starts you all systems on, engines on, ready to go at the beginning of the runway, ready to take off. That's that one. Takeoff from ramp. That is you're in a parking space, any one of these numbers, anywhere on the airfield, and engines off, cold, everything's switched off. You have to go through the whole startup yourself, and then take off from parking. Hot is the exact same, but with engines running, all things ready to taxi out. So if you want it as realistic as possible, you would obviously take off cold and dark. If you were wanting to get going, you would either be on the runway already in the air, or maybe you would take off from parking hot and change the space from 31 to something on the left over here, like position 1. So let's go with that just to prove the point. The second icon that we're going to go through is choosing our loadout. So let's have a simple bombing mission on for this one. So we're not really going to worry about the air-to-air capabilities. We'll just take the bare minimum. We're going to change the task from CAP, that's Combat Air Patrol, that's air-to-air. We'll change it from CAP to CAS, which is Combat Air Support. You know, taking out ground units that may be in support of enemy, of friendly forces on the ground or not. So let's go with that. You can see, obviously, you've got the other options as well. You've got the ability to laze for people, which you're not really going to be that as a player. You've got the anti-ship stuff. AWACS, again, you're not going to be as a player. Escorting, you know, bombers or other things. Fighter sweep, these are generally AI ones. Ground attack is more for specifically bombers, but you might choose to do ground attack if, for example, you were going after a building or a bridge as opposed to tanks and so on. That's what you'd use that. These are much more important when you're dealing with AI, because it tells the AI what it's going to be doing and what it's not going to be doing. So let's keep that on CAS. Let's just choose simple bomb for the purposes of, let's say, these Mark 20s with the fuel tanks. To edit these, what we can do is, for this particular mission payload, or we can change a template here, or we can even add a new template. Let's just change it here. So we don't want smoke. You see, we've got a couple of missiles on the tips there. We'll keep those as they are. Let's say I want to add 2 120Cs here and here. So I just click there. It's very much like reloading in the refueling. And we're going to go without anything. We're going to remove the pylon for the middle. So I'm happy with that. We're going to change the paint here. I don't know. Let's go with 251 low vis with the lightning bolt. Quite like that one. So to set up our waypoints, we're going to make sure here we go from edit to add, and we're just going to drop them in. I like to drag with my middle mouse button to get things to line up. So I want the first waypoint in line with the runway. So I'm going to zoom out a bit, and I'm going to click middle mouse wheel and hold down. You see we get a distance and ruler measuring, and I can drag it over the middle of the runway and therefore know that that waypoint there is going to be in line with the runway. It's not going to be in line with where I am now because I'm not on the runway yet, but when I'm in the runway, that first waypoint is going to be up front. So we're just going to place a short distance, 1, 2, 3, and 3. I'm going to pretend is where the targets are. And I'm going to go 4, it's going to be my egress, return to base. 5, 6 will line up. 7. 7 I'm going to change from turning point to a landing waypoint. That's, again, more important with AI, but even for me, my aircraft, it just puts the waypoints in the right place, what they're going to be. I'm going to change that to edit. It's important you don't click add, or this is going to happen when you're trying to move things. So let's delete, and 7, delete. So back to the edit. 6, that's kind of in line. The one that I'm really bothered about is 3. And what we're going to do is put some enemy units here. Once I've done that, I will come back to this again. Let's go to waypoint 2 and bring that a little closer, something like that. So first off, we're going to click on Kutaisi. This is going to change from neutral to red. Just for the purposes of this, that's now an enemy airbase. We're not going to give it any aircraft, but even so, I want it to be an enemy. And I'm going to click this tank icon here to place down a unit. If I come away, you see it's defaulted to US. We want to make sure here that the country is a red one. in this case Russia. Category, we've got the different ground possibilities from armor to buildings, train, missiles. Fortification, which is like buildings, but buildings that can shoot, and obviously artillery. So let's choose some artillery for the only reason that it's not really going to shoot me back. Certainly if I pick something that may have difficulty. Let's choose this one. So I'm going to choose 3 of them. I'm going to pop them down like that. They default north to south or whatever this particular heading is. And I'm not going to have them move. I'm just going to have them still for now. And I'm going to move my waypoint 3. I'm going to move it right over the central truck. And then I'm going to change the altitude, which was in our cruise, at 6,000 feet. I'm going to change it to 0, which is the ground level. When I unclick that, the number's going to change. You see 148, that's because the ground here, we're 148 feet above sea level. So that is still the ground. This means that waypoint 3 is at ground level, which means if I drop a bomb onto waypoint 3, it's obviously going to hit that target. It also makes the targets easier for me to see in the heads-up display. I'm now going to give one more AI unit over here. I'm going to change it once again to Russia. And I'm going to change this one to armor. I'm going to look through the different units that I have. Oh, look at that. I like that mud texture. Let's go with this one. And what we're going to do this time, we've got the same skills here like with the planes. Going to keep it on the lowest one. If you have these on, well, certainly excellent, but I find high as well. The AI is so good that shooting up at you, you don't have a chance. I mean, on excellent, they will literally fire one shot and the shot will go through your windscreen and kill you. Like, it's a headshot from the ground when you're flying 500-600 mile an hour. It's, in my opinion, the difference between average and good is already a big one. Good would be, you know, if you had many multiplayer, that I would go for good. Again, high or excellent, when you're dealing with ground to air, you know, AAA, basically, these are too good. Now, it's fine for missiles and stuff because you can still dodge them. You know, a missile flies how a missile flies. But when you're dealing with lead being fired up, you don't want to be shot out of a headshot all the time. Anyway, so here's the ground. So what I'm going to do is move this one. So I'm going to click add. I've got this one selected and I'm going to move there. Yeah, he's just going to cross across the runway. He's going to go at a speed of 11 knots. So let's increase that to 25 knots and it can go that fast. If it's above maximum speed, it'll just drop down. Let's go to the start waypoint and change that to 25 knots as well. Don't forget to do that. So destination point. We're just going to add a few more waypoints here. So I'm going to go waypoint here. Now this is obvious. It's going to follow this round. The only reason I put this in is that when we get to this point, the destination point, I want it to continue. So we're going to go from the DP, the destination waypoint. We're going to click edit, click advanced. And then we're going to click on add, and this is the advanced options, which isn't really that advanced. We've got here a few different types. We're going to go perform task. These are the different things that it can do. Sometimes it's under a different menu, but for now we're going to go perform task, go to waypoint. And the waypoint we want it to go to is SP, which is the start point. So once it gets there to the destination point, it's then going to carry out this task, which is to go to the start waypoint, and then obviously it's going to cycle the whole thing again. What we can also do is if we go to the start waypoint, I'm going to click add, and here we've got a set option. We're going to go there and we're going to change it from disperse under fire. And you see the default is that it's enabled, and it's going to do so for 600 seconds, which is actually 10 minutes, which I think is too long. It means, oh, if any of my unit get hit, we're going to just move a little bit and then stand still for 10 minutes. Well, 10 minutes is loads of time for you to come round and round and round. So I still think disperse is a good option because it means they're going to change their path But instead of 10 minutes, I think if you do something like 20 seconds, that's long enough. It's going to move out the way, but it's not really long enough for you to come back round, line up again and get another shot off. So I think that is a huge tip there. We're now almost near the end. We're going to cover triggers in detail at one point, but suffice to say, a trigger is a thing that checks for a condition in the mission, and if that condition is met, it will then do something. So let's click trigger and I'll show you what I mean. First of all, actually, can we do? Right, let's place it here. Create trigger zone. It's this one here. We're going to put it there. And as you see, it's covering a large area. To me, that's large enough. I might even want to small it down, but I don't need to. The name of the trigger, we're just going to call it red base. Can call it anything you want. Red base just makes it easier when your mission gets bigger and more complicated to refer to these things if you name them properly as opposed to random stuff. So we've got red base, which covers this entire area. Well, what good is that? Let's go to the trigger and say new. Again, this here is just the name. So we're going to call it is red dead. Real simple one. Type once. Yeah, we only need to know once if they're dead. When they are dead, we're going to be told yes. So is red dead? That's the name. So run once. The condition. So now how are we going to find out if red is dead? Well, we've got a trigger here that we called red base. All that we need to know is, are there any red units left in the area of red base? If there are no red units left in that area, then red is dead. So let's go for that condition. Let's say all of coalition out of zone. That would work. If all of the red coalition is out of this zone, they must be dead unless they've gone and run away a long way. So let's go with that. If coalition red is all out of the zone red base, which is this one, then go to the action here. And the action, we're just going to have a nice simple message here. Message to all or coalition. Let's go for coalition. We are on the blue side. So this is only going to message the people on the blue side. And we're going to say text. And we're going to say something like, well done, enemy defeated. That's it. Here we've got a couple more options. Seconds. How long do we want this to be on the screen for? I think 10 seconds is plenty. Start delay. This is an important one because the second the bomb hits, kills the last vehicle, instantly this message is going to display. I think we should have a little bit of a delay, kind of a suspense. Did we kill him? Didn't we? Kind of a thing. So let's change the start delay also to 10 seconds. Right? Then we're going to make a new action. So it's going to do both of these things. And we're just going to click on, where are we? Sound to coalition. Same thing, right? Change the coalition to blue. We want this to coincide with the message. So when the message pops up, there's a little beep. So same thing again. Let's change the start delay to 9.5. So there's going to be a little beep at 9.5 seconds after this. And at 10 seconds, there's going to be this message. The beep will just help draw our attention to it. We have to choose a file. What sound file are we going to play? And I happen to have a file here. You won't have this until you've downloaded it, or any other sounds that you might have. I happen to like some of these button sounds for mission editing. So 35, let's have a listen. That'll do. You just hear a simple beep. What I can also do lazily is clone that line, which copies it, and then add a delay, say to 10.5, and it's going to go beep. 1 second later, beep. That is it for as far as the triggers go, and then obviously we land back at base. So we've covered the weather, we've covered creating the units and the waypoints, both for ourselves and the AI, as well as a simple loop for the AI, and a trigger that's going to check for are they all dead. The last thing we're going to do before we play this and it comes to an end So we're going to click this one here, create mission briefing, and here we call it a name. So let's call it take out the red guy on mission tutorial editor intro. The situation: some bad red guys cause Russia did it like always. Okay, so that's the situation. We don't need to worry about the different tasks because they're AI, except for our own, because obviously you might give this mission for somebody else to play. So the blue task, fly along the prescribed route and take out the enemy found at waypoint 3. Once all are dead, RTB. There we go. So that now is the end of the mission. We're going to click fly, and now I'm going to click yes to save. And here I like to use the sort of standard convention for myself. So I say it's F18, which is the main plane. I then put the map name, and then I put something about what it's about. So in this case, mission editor tutorial vid 1. Enter. And then I click the same green arrow again, and now we get to fly. Click start, and this now lets us preview the mission and check that it's all working. And here we are on the ground, engine running, near the start of the waypoint like we said. And the enemy, if I press, because I don't think I limited my view, or maybe I did limit it. Let's go F10. I did see. Can't see myself on the map, so I forgot to re-enable that. You obviously can't see the enemy on the map. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed. There'll be more coming. And next time we'll go into a little bit more detail about the different functions and all the different things that we can do. So at the end of it, you can make really good missions, because I find you can make really good missions without using any scripting at all. I promise you that. Okay? Let's leave it there. Until then, have a good one. Bye-bye.